Gate was $5 million. We got 4 Performance of the Night bonuses. Kennedy Hooper, Luque, and Pantoja. They all won $50,000.
Hey, Dana.
What's up, buddy?
First of all, what was your take on Pantoja's call-out? Like, that seemed a little strange call-out of Demetrius Johnson after...
Oh, is that who I didn't hear it.
Yeah. He said that I'm the GOAT, and if you want to prove you're still the GOAT, come fight me. Is that something you would entertain even?
I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah. Listen, you know how I was the one beating the drum about Demetrius Johnson a long time ago. And, yeah, I don't know.
What was your take on his Pantoja's performance?
He looked
tonight?
incredible.
Did you feel like, he went out there right off the bat and pressured Asakura, a guy that has a reputation as a knockout fighter, to try to take that aspect away from him?
Well, there's 2 sides to this story. You take a guy like Asakura who came in, in the UFC your first time. We talk about the jitters, all the things that happen. First time fighting in a cage, et cetera, and he came in guns a-blazing, flying knee, like right out the gate. And then Pantoja, how he put the pressure back on him. Who in this room didn't want to see 3 more rounds of that? You know what I mean? It would have been amazing. It was a great fight. And Pantoja went out and dominated.
Yeah, and Pantoja's now beaten Brandon Rouvol, Brandon Moreno, and now this guy. So certainly he has starting to build that kind of resume up where now all of a sudden you got to talk about him as one of the greats in the game. You get to 3 title defenses in the UFC. That's pretty significant, is it not?
I agree.
Where do you think he ranks in terms of the the great flyweight champions you've had? Moreno had a great run. Davison was great. Obviously, we know about DJ. Where do you think Alexandre rates right now?
Well, I mean, to say, right here off the top of my head, I don't know. He's awesome. He looked incredible tonight, and, I don't know.
What was your take on, I thought Ian Machado Gary was great in terms of his takedown defense and the way he fought, short notice fight. What was your take on that fight, and were you impressed by Shavkat?
Yeah, it's one of those fights. I'll give you an example, too, like Landwehr versus Choi. On paper, they go in the middle of the octagon, just start slugging it out, and, sometimes they don't play out the way you think. 15-0 versus 18-0. What that means, you have 2 really great fighters with a lot at stake. There's a title on the line, and you saw a lot of great things from both guys during that fight. It wasn't a knockdown, drag 'em out war, but I will tell you this: thank God it was 5 rounds. 5 rounds was the way to do that fight.
A couple other things I just wanted to ask you about. Number one, I was going to ask you this yesterday about. Is this the best year in the company history? You had 5 of the top 10 gates in UFC history were this year. 299, 300, 303, 306, 309. Your highest gate ever at a fight night card in Edmonton, which apparently you may break next week. Do you feel that makes this the greatest year in UFC history? We
say this every year. Every year we say this is the best year. How do we do better next year? I mean, this is literally what we say every year. How are you going to beat this year? We just keep doing it. I don't know. But yes, and guess what? Last year was the best year in UFC history, and the year before that was. Let's keep it rolling.
What criteria do you judge that by? Is it just bottom line finances, or are there other...
It's everything. I mean, you take everything in. The sphere. Who saw that coming? Every year we something happens that we didn't see coming, right? And... yeah, obviously, financially, it goes to another level. Creatively, I think it goes to another level. And, you talk about things like breaking merch records and, et cetera, et cetera. I like to break records. Right now, when we talked about New York, we're 7 of the top 10. By the time we go there, again, this next coming year, we'll be 8 of the top 10. And eventually, in the next couple of years, we'll be 10 of the top 10. So, think about that. No. When you think about that, Madison Square Garden, we weren't allowed to go into New York. The most famous arena in the world, all the big events that have been there. Within the next couple of years, the UFC will be 10 of the top 10 gates of all time at Madison Square Garden. And we broke most of the gates around the world their records everywhere we go. So.
We haven't had a chance to talk to you since the thing about Conor McGregor came down. Any reaction that you have since the conviction in the civil court and the penalties he faced?
What do you mean? What's my reaction?
Do you have any comment about what his?
If I had a comment, I would have put it out already.
What about his status with the UFC?
He hasn't been fighting here in I don't know how long.
But there's been, you announced him at 303. There's been talk he's going to fight.
Right.
I mean, does that impact him in any way, or?
Well, if he does fight, it'll be sometime next year.
Okay. All right. And then finally, were you PO'd at Marab for something yesterday? You seemed like you were upset about something that was going on at that press conference. Was there something with the heat between the guys that had you?
That I was pissed off?
Yeah. Were you?
No.
Oh, okay.
I thought the press conference was awesome.
Right.
I thought the heat between him and Umar was great. So I was not supposed to be in Los Angeles for this fight coming up, for this pay-per-view fight. I have to fly somewhere and do something that is really important, and I'm moving it. I'm going to Los Angeles. That's how pissed off I was. Yeah.
Dana, when you look at the complexion of tonight's card, coming off of 309 with such a headliner, the depth as far as quality or quantity, I think you had both tonight. Can you just talk about it up and down with the matches? As far as you come off of a card with John Jones, this one it seems like from the preliminary to the co-mains to the main card, it seemed like it was action packed from top to bottom, where you didn't need the big headliner.
Yeah, I agree. It was a great card, but I love the head. Listen, this might be one of those fights that you don't think is a big headliner. Kevin's over there talking about, is this guy, one of the greats of all time? He fought another guy who was a champion in another organization that comes over from Japan. When you think about what that fight meant, had Kai won tonight, you know how big that would have been in Japan, and we'd be talking. Even with the performance he had tonight, we're talking about possibly going and doing a fight in Japan now. So I wouldn't say that there wasn't, whether you call it a big headliner, not every card is John Jones, but to say that Pantoja isn't a, he's asking me right now if he's the best ever.
Dana, front, right here. Right here. We had a couple losses for some veterans, Clay Guida, Chris Weidman, Anthony Smith. You've made it known that you thought Chris should have hung it up a couple fights ago. Anthony, couldn't really hold in the tears when he was walking out, and then Clay is, I think, 40-something. What do you do with those three?
They all retire tonight.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you won't offer them any more fights, or you'll just kind of...
They should all retire tonight.
And then what did you make of the Crone-Bryce Mitchell fight? Because in Crone's last fight, you were pretty critical of him. You said it was limited. Even Crone said it was the biggest mistake to kind of come in with one tool. Bryce knocked him cold with an elbow off the top. So just what did you make of Crone's performance and his future with the company?
So wait a minute. What's your question? So you're asking me, you're saying Crone looked really limited the last time he fought, and he looked limited tonight. What's your opinion on?
I didn't think he was limited tonight.
No? What did you think?
I thought he had a better game plan than the fight he had against Charles Jourdain. Because Bryce Mitchell's just had the answers for it.
Okay. So you're like, what do you think about Weidman, this guy, and that guy tonight? I said they should retire. What do you think about Crone? Yeah. No, I don't like the way you're leading me down this road. I know what you're doing. You know the answer to the question, but you just want me to say it or something. You're saying Crone looked limited. What do you think? Do you have any other questions you want to ask me? Anything fucking positive, or you want me to shit on everybody on the card tonight?
I was going to ask, my last one was going to be about Movzar. What you thought of his performance in there?
About who?
Movzar. He won against Aljamain. The fight.
Look great. Congrats to him.
Dana, how did you score the Cyril Gane-Volkov fight?
I thought Volkov won the fight.
Look, I'm not going to try to shit on her particularly, but Adelaide Bird scored it for him, right? This is a name we've heard. But my point really is these judges who have shown bad decisions time and time again, is there anything we can do with the commission to say, like, hey, can they be re-educated, if not moved?
So here's what happened after that fight. You heard the boos. I went over to Volkov. I apologized to him. I thought he won the fight. And then the head of the commission came over and said, listen, we feel like that second round was really close and, could have gone either way. And both guys got rocked. We thought that, we thought that, what did they think? That I can't remember which one they thought had the worst of it in the second round. But, they were making the argument on why the fight was judged the way it was. I had a problem with the battle fight, too.
Do you agree with their argument when you heard them out, or do you still maintain that you think Volkov should have probably got the decision?
It doesn't fucking matter what I think. It really doesn't, because at the end of the day, they decide who wins and loses, not us.
There was an incident with Merab and a fan tonight. I mean, that stuff happens, especially with Merab, to be honest. But I was more curious about your opinion on his mindset this week, right? Seems pretty pissed off at a lot of stuff. Going after Umar yesterday, the press conference, he was freaking out a lot. What do you make of his mindset towards his fight with Umar right now?
Yeah, it's actually a great question. I mean, listen, it's already, Merab's that guy. He's that guy. This isn't his first altercation. I don't know if you guys noticed at the press conference yesterday, too. To the right, somebody yelled something. He's in the middle of the conversation. He looked like he's trying to see who said that. Like what? You're going to run over there and you're going to fight this guy, too? It's the way he is. He's built that way. And I don't know if you saw, but he wasn't sitting in the regular fighter section. We had to move him over. I had to move the other two guys over at our table. It's, we try to diffuse this stuff before it happens. And tonight we had a good game plan. I didn't think he'd get into a fight walking out with Aljamain, but.
Do you think there's a chance he's kind of intimidated by this Umar fight, though, right? He seems to really not want this fight or doesn't feel like Umar deserves it. Do you think there's some mind games going on here, or do you think Umar might be in his head?
Listen, I don't think that any of these guys are afraid of anybody. I'm sure there's certain guys they'd rather wait to fight, and they all have their reasons or whatever. But to say that Merab's fighting people in the fucking stands, okay? Merab would get in a fight in the middle of the fighter section. That's why we moved him over to the left. So I wouldn't say that any of these guys are afraid of anybody or any fight. But fighters are a paranoid bunch. There's always some conspiracy against them, whether it's us or other people. Or we make fights that people want to see. They win or lose the fights on their own. But they are conspiracy theory. They always think that somebody is against them. And maybe that's what they need to do to have that mental thing to go out and do what they do.
Speaking of conspiracy theorists, did you tell Bryce Mitchell fuck seatbelts after his fight?
Yeah. He said, I love you. This is the only organization that lets us speak our mind and be who we are and everything else. And I said, fuck seatbelts, buddy.
Last one from me. Kevin sort of went through the list of guys that Pantoja has beaten in this division.
Mm-hmm.
Considering he's beaten a lot of them, do you think Kai Kara-France makes the most sense for him because that's the one guy he hasn't beaten twice already?
I don't know. We'll see.
Dana, right back here.
Yep. Go ahead. This guy, go ahead.
I was going to say, that's not the first time that's happened with Merab. Is there anything you guys do or can do to prevent that? Are there any repercussions? Or
He's my mini Strickland without the mouth. What do you do? Let him buy the pay-per-view, I guess. I mean, I don't know. You can't keep fighting with fucking fans. It's going to cost you a lot. You can do it. It's going to cost you a lot of money, right? And, I don't know. Listen, man, I say it all the time. We're in the fucking fight business. This happens. We got to deal with it. Tonight we tried. I took Islam. We took Islam and we took, Poirier. Not Poirier. You know what the fuck I'm talking about. I don't, but you do. Took them out, put them at the table, moved Merab over to the other side, had Umar and his crew over in the middle, and we still had problems. We still couldn't, We do our best. I didn't even know Nate Diaz was coming yesterday, threw a water bottle at Islam, I don't know why. But listen, if you guys knew fucking this much of what goes on behind the scenes, you would wonder why we do this for a living.
Dana, back here.
Yeah.
Dana, originally Tatiana Suarez was supposed to be on the card against Virna Jandiroba. You guys announced Strickland Duplessis 2, Zhang Weili, Tatiana. Was the reason she was pulled from the card because you guys wanted her for the title fight next February?
I have no idea. Does it matter?
No, I think it's a
Okay.
great fight. I'm ready
Thank you,
for it
sir. We
already.
appreciate it.
Next one. You've talked a lot about being critical. Los Angeles getting back to where it was and being one of those markets. Obviously, going to LA, just what made now the time to finally bring the UFC back to Los Angeles specifically instead of Anaheim?
The Intuit Dome.
That's a very new venue. Do you guys have any plans to use any of the new just features that arena has ahead of the fight?
We'll lose none of them, no.
And then finally, Cosm in Los Angeles nearby, experienced it. It's almost as good as the Sphere, if you have a great seat, can you just talk about that partnership in LA, because that's quite the venue if you've never seen fights over there.
Great question. Yes, it's if you have not seen any sporting event, not just the UFC at Cosm, it is a very cool experience. If you're not going to the event live and you're not having a bunch of people over your house, it is a very, very cool way to watch any sporting event. It's fascinating.
Thank you.
Dana?
Yep.
Dana?
Yep. Go ahead, middle guy right here. Yeah.
Dana, thank you so much for announcing the Islam Tarukan fight in Los Angeles. I just want to ask, I think it's going to be one of the biggest events for the last couple of years. I wanted to ask, did you ever plan to make that tournament in Saudi Arabia? Because Islam mostly fights there, a couple Dagestani fights in the card. Did you ever think about making that fight over there? Or why you specifically chose Los Angeles? Because of Armenia fans or like...
Well, a lot of things have to line up in timing, and we were going to Los Angeles, and you start looking at what are the best fights to make. You know, it doesn't suck throwing an Armenian on a card, and the list goes on and on. It was the perfect card for LA. Like I just told the other guy, the Intuit Dome is badass. We're excited to go into that venue. I think that, you know, those are the type of venues you're going to start seeing being built with all this technology and cool shit to do.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Yeah.
Dan?
Go ahead.
How close was Hamzat to getting the title shot against DDP in Australia?
How close was it?
Yeah.
I mean, guys, what are you fucking? Is this tonight's stupid question night? How close was he to getting?
I'm asking you because after his win against Robert Whittaker, you said he might be next, right? So
Right.
I was just.
He's not next.
Gotcha.
How close was he? I don't know. I mean, we sit in a room every Tuesday and we pick fights.
Was he in the conversation too?
He's always in the conversation.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Data in the back.
Yes. Well, let this guy go first. He got jumped over here twice. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Dana. Duho Choi said there are so many UFC fans in Korea, and he wishes someday they're gonna be had a UFC game in the Korea. The last time when the UFC hold a game at the Korea was 2019. Do you have any plan to had another game at the Korea?
He's asking me if we're going back to Korea. So I was supposed to go to Korea this week for looking for a fight for the Korean Zombie show. And then, you know, there was some unrest going on over there. So our global security said we shouldn't go there right now. And we're figuring out another way to do this with the Zombie for his show next weekend. But the answer is yes. If we don't end up there with a fight, I am going to Korea in 2025 to do another show with the Korean Zombie.
And I mean, do you have any plan for?
Yes, we will eventually get back to Korea. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
In the back. So you had Power Slap this week, and it looked like in the Fountain Blue that audience size had almost doubled from the last time that you were there. You have the card coming up in Saudi. How important is that opportunity to grow Power Slap, and what are you seeing as a difference from how Power Slap has grown from the early days of what UFC had to go through?
I literally just had this conversation with Forbes today, and yes, when you look at Power Slap, you can't go back in the future ever, and you know, it feels like I am with rebuilding the UFC. It's almost identical, except so much faster. And in less than 2 years, that company is ahead of where the UFC was in 10 years.
Why?
So it's been fun. The thing did 2.9 million views last night. Obviously, it was super successful, inside the arena. And yeah, I'm excited to go to Saudi, and we're about to announce a couple of new big deals with Power Slap in the next month or so.
Just one more for me. Vinny Pazienza was announced as a 2024 International Boxing Hall of Fame inductee. We know that you inducted him here in the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame. How important was it to finally get him recognized in the International Hall?
I love that guy, and I'm really happy for him. I know it was very important to him. He wanted to be inducted in the Boxing Hall of Fame before he, passes away. So he's ecstatic. I'm really happy for him, and it couldn't happen to a better dude. I love Vinny.
Dana, to your right.
Thank
over
you.
Here.
Yep.
You've always had a good relationship with Saki Gabara, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And, putting this fight together with Kai, a big deal with him. I'm curious, is there any possibility now of maybe bringing over other possible champions from their organization to the UFC you've been talking about?
Yeah, I would. We did it tonight. He had a good performance. I would love to do it. And obviously, having these up and coming. So we were just talking in my room, and he's saying now that in Japan, all of these young guys now want to be the first one to win a world title in the UFC. So that's exciting. There's such a rich history of MMA in Japan, and some of the best days of my life were our rivalry with Pride, and it was a really fun time in my life. So, and in his too. We were talking about it. So the answer is yes to all of that. And I'd love to go do a fight night there too.
Well, if I could make a suggestion, you were recently teasing, interest in the atomweight division. If you're going to start, they have the best in the world right there. The perfect person to start the division with, Seika Izawa.
Thank you, sir.
Gotcha. I gotcha.
No, I don't disagree with you. Yeah.
Dana, so UFC flyweight Charles Johnson, he's starting a slap fighting promotion. I know he spoke to you about it. He hopes it could be like a place to recruit fighters for power slap. What do you think about that being a potential minor leagues for power slap?
I love it. No, they're popping up everywhere. There's a couple down in Brazil. There's some over in Poland. There's one now starting in South Africa. And the list goes on and on. So, yeah, listen, it's no different than the UFC. When we all started, like we were just talking about Pride in Japan, we first bought the UFC, there were several organizations, and then they all started popping up left and right after we got involved. And it's never a bad thing for the sport. It's always a good thing.
Dana right here.
Yep.
You had the World MMA Awards, Power Slap, FPI, and now UFC 310 tonight. What a hectic week. Can you just talk about, the behind the scenes of your week?
No, it was a cool week, man. Fighters only, I commend them for doing that award show. I know that isn't cheap. It's not easy. He lives in England, and, it's a good night for the people who are involved in the sport. So I'm a big supporter of it, and I always will be. It was a fun weekend.
And just one.
Yep.
I know you mentioned you can't go to South Korea anymore for the Korean Zombies show, but Dorobshok Nabatov, the guy who asked you for a contract at the press conference, he's actually on that card. He's fighting Mateus Camilo.
So what I just said to him is, I'm actually going to do Looking for a Fight, and we're going to do it via satellite from Florida next weekend. So, I had lunch with the Zombie the other day, and he was all bummed out. He's like, this card's badass. I got people that should be in the UFC on this card, and I love the Korean Zombie, so we're going to figure this thing out. It's going to be different than the normal show, but we're still filming this episode of Looking for a Fight.
Okay, I was going to say, yeah, because there's some talent on that card, and so I'm assuming
100%.
I wanted to see if you guys can sign those guys.
Yep, we're doing it. Yep.
And one more
Yes,
question
sir.
about UFC events 2025, specifically in Brazil. Can we expect an event there next year?
Can you expect an
Brazil?
event in Brazil in 2025? In Brazil in 2025, are we expecting an event there?
Are we expecting? Yes, we'll be doing an event in Brazil. In 25, yes. Yeah, I understand. Got it.
Where?
Yes. Where?
Where in Brazil?
I don't know, sir. We're coming, though. Guy behind him, yeah.
Tatsuro Taira of Japan lost in the cross match, and today Kai Asakura lost. Does it change the possibility of UFC Japan 2025?
The fact that Kai lost today, does it change the possibility of still doing a UFC in Japan next year?
Yeah. Here, translate to him that I just said that about 5 seconds ago. Yes. Yes, sir. I would love to do a fight night there. Do you understand that?
Yes,
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Go ahead, kid. What's up?
So tonight, Cyril Gane had a strange win against Alexander Volkov. In France, he used to be the closest French fighter to get a belt in the UFC. Right now, in France, we all think that the closest to the belt is Manon Fiorot. Will you give her title shot soon against Valentina Shevchenko?
Cyril Gane tonight won a weird victory against Volkov. In France, he was the closest to the title. Now the next French person that's closest to the title is Manon Fiorot. Will you give her a chance to fight Valentina Shevchenko next year for the title?
Yeah, no, she is right there, and the answer is yes, she will be fighting for a title. I don't know when, right here, right now, but the answer is yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hey Dana, right in the middle.
Yep.
Patricio Pitbull said earlier this week that he wants to leave the PFL and he would like to sign with the UFC. Is he someone you'd like to see on the roster?
Who said that?
Patricio Pitbull.
Oh, Pitbull. Listen, the last couple months we've been talking a lot about the PFL. You know, they're canceling a lot of shows. I know that a lot of guys that are supposed to fight aren't fighting. And I mean, you guys know what the fuck's going on. I'm not, you know, when you see that start to happen, you're running out of money. Things aren't looking good. And you're going to have people that want to jump ship. You know, these guys want to fight. You have a very limited time of opportunity when you're a professional athlete, and even less when you're a fighter. So I'm sure you're going to see a lot of that, and we'll see how this plays out over the next several months going into 25.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I'll see you in Florida.